listening right now, please? Yes. Call out.
Our group said a lot of the two different kinds of alone. One, if they are wanting to be alone, that it feels good, it's nice to be alone sometimes and have quiet time and be on their own. But if you're alone because maybe it wasn't your will, like because somebody left you out of something or you're feeling hurt, then it's not so much fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are two ways, there are kind of two ways it can go. Yes, Amy? You hate being alone? Any, like, at all, ever? Hate being alone? Anyone else? Yeah, so for some people, like, I like being alone sometimes. I'm an introvert and I'm like, oh, I need that time to like refuel and just kind of sit with myself and just be. But there are other times when being alone is the worst, whether someone like stood you up in a way or you didn't plan on being alone and you're just kind of there. That can be really hard. So a few months ago, I was hanging out with my friend at her jacuzzi. It was like her neighborhood jacuzzi, and this like big group of guys came in. And it was like 9 o'clock, and so I thought it was kind of weird that there was like this big group of guys. My friend wanted to leave, but I was like, no, like they're probably gonna do something dumb, so let's stay and watch. It was like kind of late, and I was like, this is going on YouTube somewhere, like let's stay. So we did, and they actually got in like the jacuzzi with us, and I was like, this could be weird, but they were actually a Bible study group that were just like hanging out. And we found out that we had a lot in common with them. So it was kind of cool. And they invited us to an event that their college group was having the next night, and I was so excited to go. I was like, yes, these guys are super cool, they're safe, we know now. So I decided to go to this event. My friend couldn't go, so I was like, I'll go alone, no big deal. So the next night rolled around, and I went, and I was super excited still, and I pulled up, and when I got on the campus, I was like overcome with just the fact that I was alone, and that I didn't know anyone, and my friend wasn't there, and I had to like walk in by myself, which I hate. So I sat in my car for a solid 10 minutes and scrolled through Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat, and finally I got the courage to go in. And I walked in, and I was still like nervous, but I started introducing myself, and I actually saw a girl that I went to junior high with, and I hadn't seen her since 8th grade, but I saw her, and all of a sudden I wasn't alone. And I felt so much better. I still didn't know what was going to happen, and I still felt kind of out of place, but I wasn't alone. I had a friend. We weren't created to go through life alone, but a lot of us do. Even if we're surrounded by a lot of people, even if we have a lot of friends, even if we get likes on our Instagrams or Finstagrams, because yes, we see those, we can still feel alone and unseen. As the story I told shows, isolation can bring anxiety. I was anxious and fearful about what was to come going into that place by myself, but there wasn't anything to be afraid of, but I was scared still. Last night, did anybody go to the Selena Gomez concert last night? Rascals? Joe? I thought I saw you there. So one of my jobs is I work at the Honda Center in one of the restaurants there. And when like shows come, when people come and perform, the opening acts usually get ready in the like boxes next to the restaurant that I work in. So Charlie Puth's spot, or his like green room area, was right next to where I work. And before the show started, this random guy was out in like the hallway, and he didn't have a shirt on, and security was like, why don't you have a shirt? You need to put clothes on. And it was actually Charlie Puth. He was getting a massage, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he made a joke when he was on stage about like, oh, security didn't know who I was, I'm not famous enough, whatever. And actually I saw him a second time after he performed. He went to the restroom, and he came back out, and he came out of the restroom and just kind of looked around, and no one recognized him, no one saw him. And when he stepped out and looked around, it kind of looked like he was like, someone noticed me, someone recognized me, like I just performed. And I felt like, we kind of all feel like that sometimes, like, notice me, I'm here. So sometimes we want to be seen, but other times we run away. We run away from our relationships and friendships. We keep people at arm's length because they've hurt us, or they don't understand us, or we don't want to take the risk of them not liking us once they get to know us. One of the cool things about God is that there's many cool things, but one of the cool things is that who he is and his character invites us to him and invites us to relationship with him. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is Genesis 16, and it's when Sarai and Abram are wanting to have a child, and it's just not happening for them. So Sarai, being so smart, is like, hey, Abram, like, get with my slave and have a kid that way. Maybe we can have a child that way. So they do, and her slave Hagar gets pregnant, and even though that's what Sarai wanted, she's pissed. Seeing her slave, this woman that's supposed to be of lower position than her, being able to do the one thing that she wanted more than anything in the world, it just enraged her, and so she mistreated Hagar. And rightfully so, Hagar was, she was in anguish, and she was afraid, and so she ran away. And she went to this stream in the desert, and it says in verse 7 that the angel of the Lord found her. She wasn't like praying or really looking for God. She was running from mistreatment, but the Lord found her. She was important to him, and he found her. In Genesis 3, we see a similar piece of God's character that reveals who he is. Even though this is a story of a different time, we can still see how he loves us because of how he loved them. So in Genesis 3, we pretty much all of us know the story of Adam and Eve. They broke the one commandment God gave them to not eat from the tree of good, the knowledge of good and evil. So they ate from it and they sinned, and in doing so, they were aware of their vulnerability, so they hid.